Order. Welcome to City of St. Cloud Community Redevelopment Agency meeting for Tuesday, April 29th, 2025, 2 p.m. And can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Chair Robertson.
Here.
Vice Chair Fletcher.
Here.
Member Paul. Here. Member Irvin.
Here.
Member Gilbert.
Here.
Member Wagner.
Here.
Member Loden.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, and we have presentations on the P3 mixed-use development with public parking project. City Manager, would you like to kick this off?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, our Economic Development CRA Director had a personal emergency, so she will be coming, but she may be a few minutes late. So this afternoon, we have scheduled presentations from the three companies that gave us proposals on our downtown project. We scheduled them with G3 first. If we can ask them to come up, we asked each participant to do a 30-minute presentation to the board about their project.
All right, G3, can I please have your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, sir. Jake Gunther, 2223 Overlook Drive, Mount Dora, Florida.
Oh, yes, sir, go ahead. You're waiting on me.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm just waiting on, we're ready to go. If
You're ready to go?
The presentation.
Do we have
They're
the
loading
air
the presentation. Oh, you didn't receive a presentation?
Okay.
We sent one yesterday afternoon.
All right, we can
send it? We can find it.
yeah, we can wait a moment.
Yeah, I've
if
got
you want
my
to locate that.
laptop here if we need to email it over now. But
Can you say, or is there an issue if I find out where they sent it to?
Sure. I mean, that would make it easier to find.
I sent it to purchasing whatever the email was on that form.
It's important enough. I think we need to
Okay.
do that.
Yeah, I'll be completely winging it without that. So I don't know if you guys want me to do that,
Well,
but I can.
Tell us about yourself.
So yeah, I mean,
What'd you have for lunch today?
So perhaps we can
Krabby.
switch places maybe if the next
That'd be
participant
awesome.
and the board would be willing.
we are
Absolutely.
open to whatever you guys want to do. So yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
with us.
Thank
Yep.
you.
That would work. Which one would you like us to do first?
I don't know who was scheduled second. They didn't give me that piece of paper. Capstack, if Capstack could please.
All right, we'll go ahead and call for Capstack Development.
Great presentation, G3. Short and to the point.
All right, can we please have your name and address for the record?
Veronica Malolas, 1081 East Lakeshore Boulevard, Kissimmee. Good afternoon, CRA board, staff, and of course, the public who's here today. We are very excited to bring our proposal for the City of St. Cloud's opportunity for redevelopment as part of a public-private partnership rebid RFP number 2025-010. For today, we're going to cover a brief introduction of our company. We're going to introduce our team. We're going to give you an overview of our proposal. You're going to see some beautiful renderings from Baker Barris Architects. And of course, we're going to talk about deal economics. So again, I'm Veronica Malolas, CCIM. I'm the founder and CEO of Capstack Development Co., LLC, a minority woman-owned business. And we're very, very happy to be before you today to give you our proposal for a community-focused, high-end product for downtown St. Cloud. A little bit about us. We are homegrown in Osceola County. As a matter of fact, my husband and I, who's here, we raised our 5 children right here in Osceola County. My daughter, who's also here, actually graduated from St. Cloud High. And so a lot of her friends and family and our family actually visit this downtown and general St. Cloud a lot. This is where we live. And a little bit about my service to Osceola County. I was planning board commissioner for 10 years, served as chair for 3 years. And for the city of St. Cloud, I was honored and so happy to have served the city in the Stevens Plantation repositioning about 10 years ago already. Oh my goodness, yeah. And I am a CCIM, if you're not aware. CCIM is the Organization of Commercial Real Estate Experts. As a matter of fact, we were so happy that St. Cloud had sponsored our signature event in Osceola, very, very successful on the Lakefront Marina. I'm a lifetime learner. So I was just recently at the Wharton Business School, and we're very, very excited to bring our expertise to downtown St. Cloud. We have a mission. We develop thriving, inclusive communities through real estate projects that deliver responsible financial returns while making meaningful social impact. So we're not here really to just make a development profit. We are here because we have a heart for this community. And we want to bring a community-focused, high-end product for all to enjoy. A little bit about not a little bit, it's going to be a lot about our Development A team. Our extensive local mixed-use development experience in architectural, engineering, construction, and commercial leasing is really not like any other. So we're very proud to bring Craig Usler, CCIM, and if you've ever heard of Creative Village in downtown Orlando, he's responsible for creating this beautiful P3 development project to the city in reshaping the Paramore district. John Joyce, a lot of you and staff actually recognize John Joyce. He was responsible for repositioning and reshaping the Stevens Plantation Retail Park. Eric Sheridan is Business Development Manager for Metromont, who's been around 100 years. Well, not Eric, but Metromont. And Metromont is a prefab concrete builder who is a garage expert. Tim Baker, AIA, is the chief architect of Baker Barrios Architects, prominent architectural firm in Central Florida, and also the whole state of Florida and other states as well. And that would be me, again, Veronica Malala, CCIM. I am the founder and CEO of the Capstack Group of companies with commercial brokerage, commercial property management, and commercial development. Robert Moon is the principal and president of KPM Franklin, again, homegrown. And they have a big footprint, not only here, but also in Central Florida. Jessica Axu is the principal of T&G Constructors. They are mid-rise builders. And as a matter of fact, they also build here in Osceola County, St. Cloud, and Kissimmee. Vernice Bradley is an attorney who has devoted herself to the construction industry, founder of Vodum Construction, been involved for 35 years in Central Florida construction and P3 projects. And a lot of her experience comes from her tenure at Turner Construction. Jeff Seeley, our finance consultant, has a very, very wide range of experience in working with local government, having a background in architecture, engineering, and construction, and especially rebuilding the counties and cities that were actually affected by the hurricanes Katrina and Andrew. Vincent Capuano is our VP of Projects Management, and he's our son. And if I may brag on him, he's here actually. He graduated from Gateway High School, class valedictorian of a class of 1,000. And he actually went to Georgia Tech for mechanical engineering, a minor in robotics. And he worked for Amazon in the distribution centers for projects management for their robotics. So as you can see, our team's experience and strong presence in the market is crucial in today's volatile economy and construction industry. We all know what's going on nowadays. So very unpredictable. A few of our past projects, Joyce Development Group, again, Stevens Plantation was helpful with the city in replanning and reshaping Stevens Plantation Retail Park. And if you've ever gone to Joy Japan restaurant, that's my client. Also, maybe you've had your dog groomed with Lily Pups and all our favorite tenants. As a matter of fact, one of the other development projects in Stevens Retail is being done by my team. Again, Creative Village, one of the most significant P3 redevelopment, mixed use projects in downtown Orlando. They work very closely with the city of Orlando that reshaped the Paramore District, is now home to the UCF downtown campus, the Monroe Restaurant, dormitories, multifamily office, and just really exciting to have Craig Usler on board. Baker Barris Architects past projects. This one is the Boynton Beach Town Square redevelopment, and they helped design the new City Hall. Again, Baker Barrios with Pompano Beach Innovation District, very large scale development, as you can see, just beautiful design that they brought to Pompano Beach. For KPM Franklin Engineers, like Mary Wellness and Technology, Master Plan and Multifamily, again, very large scale. And TNG Constructors, actually, this is not a past project. It's a current project with the Flats Resort and Spa in Kissimmee. So you know that when they're active in the market, they have that network of the labor force that we need so that we can see this project to fruition. Now we get to talk about our proposal that we so lovingly call the St. Cloud Exchange. It's a two-phase mixed-use development. Phase one, as you can see for reference, City Hall. The south parcel is going to be the commercial development with 250 space multi-level parking deck, 30,000 square feet of retail. And we do intend to bring and curate the very best restaurants and commercial retail in phase one. Phase two has a 150 unit apartment complex with Class A amenities and 325 parking spaces, additional parking spaces, that will serve not only the residents, but also retail and the rest of the public. As part of this partnership, the city secures substantial parking to meet the existing shortfall and support the new mixed-use development with 250 space multi-level parking garage, 100 spaces for 30,000 square feet of commercial space, 225 spaces for 150 unit Class A apartment complex. This will be a catalyst project that sets the tone for future private investment and elevates the standard for downtown development. A total of $8.5 million in public infrastructure improvements, including parking and stormwater enhancements, $80 million in new taxable value, generating $16.4 million in ad valorem taxes over 10 years and full tax revenue beyond the abatement period. It supports 400 to 500 new construction jobs and 66 to 86 permanent jobs across operations and commercial space. 200 plus new residents will be welcomed to the downtown St. Cloud, increasing foot traffic and demand for local business. Downtown vibrancy is enhanced, supporting long-term revitalization and sustainable economic growth. Let's talk about the project timeline. What we call phase zero is the first 6 months. Of course, due diligence and contract execution and negotiation with, of course, the city approval. The delivery period will be in phase one, 23 months with a parking deck, which we want to front load because this is a priority for the city and the commercial space. And while we're building phase one, we're going to have a little schedule overlap because the last 6 months, we're also going to be in permitting so that after we build phase one, we're going to be starting to build phase two right away. So phase two is another 36 months. It's the apartment building with the garage for a total duration of 59 months or less than 5 years for the total project. I'd like to call on Wilfred Rodriguez, who represents Tim Baker, Chief Architect for Baker Barrios. Wilfred?
Hello, thank you very much for your time and opportunity. So right now, I'd like to go over some of the renderings for our proposal. So we're going to start with the phase one, the garage with the retail podium. For us, placemaking, it's always human-centered, and for us, the streetscape becomes that first impression as visitors and residents arrive at St. Cloud. So carrying on that retail dialogue into phase two, we created a system of awnings that pull the visitors and the pedestrian across the streetscape on the level one podium garage, as long as including public art and other amenities as people move across the building to create an inviting and foster a sense of curiosity. For our interiors, we always like to include natural materials that reflect light, that create a bright space for occupants to come in and interact with one another. So this would be a roof deck over the garage. For us, this is a very important space as it becomes an extension of the public realm on the second level or elevated level, if I say, to, again, foster a sense of curiosity for the visitors and residents alike. Building up on that is our secondary terrace, and this one is located in the apartments. This one actually overlooks City Hall. Again, creating a connection between the public realm and the streetscape with the amenity spaces in the living spaces. With that, we incorporate always art, planting, things that bring comfort to the space and create a sense of gathering and community. Going back again to touching up on those public amenities, we continue to flood spaces with light, textures that feel elevated, that feel cozy, that make people want to come into the space and inhabit it. In here, for example, it's one of our gathering spaces. Could be used for co-work space, could be for small gatherings, for residents to interact. And again, building up on that is this second level, two-level amenity space, bringing light, elevated finishes to, again, foster looking outside into the surroundings as well. Fitness is always a huge component to our projects, and so continuing to maintain that visibility between outdoor and indoor is important on all spaces. And then on the living residential units, we continue to, again, expose and bring as much natural light as possible with natural textures, as well as, again, finishes that are clean, that are comfortable for people to spend the majority of the time at their residence. Here are a couple of examples of how we start to blend in indoor and outdoor spaces. Here in Orlando, these are some of our projects. And again, continuing that dialogue between the public realm and the interior spaces as an extension of one another. For the lobby, for example, as we mentioned earlier, the public art, it becomes a way to connect indoor and outdoor, as well with the natural light. And then we go to the next slide. You can see that public art in some of our projects that starts to get incorporated along the public realm. This, again, we'd like to incorporate and foster a sense of curiosity, a sense of people feeling safe walking around the property and keeping people coming back for more. Thank you.
Thank you, Wilfred. Now let's talk about deal economics. I mean, you've seen a lot of beautiful concepts and pictures, but the question really that we have to ask is our proposal financially viable? Will our mixed-use development attract the right equity and debt partners? We all know that at the end of the day, our project has to pencil. And we can safely say after many, many hours that we researched on this project and also spent a lot of man hours on our pro forma, that this is one project that we are so proud to say that we can absolutely deliver. So for this, we're going to call on our finance consultant, Jeff Seeley of Seeley Consulting. Jeff?
Thank you, Veronica. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Jeff Seeley, 10646 Barrow Landing Way, Orlando, Florida. Perhaps we started with Veronica asking the most important question of the hour. Is this deal financially viable? And let me humbly and confidently say, yes, it is. And perhaps the second question is, why are we so confident? In packaging this deal together, we focus on two primary categories and looking at how to give you the best proposal per your requirements. One is we looked at the construction market itself. Obviously, coming out of COVID, there was a lot of volatility going on and prices going up. And we look at our team that are locally here that have done much of this from Orlando to here in this county, that we feel that we figured out the price correctly, and we project our development to be $77 million development. And that is key, and we'll come back to that as we move a little bit further. The second part is the financial viability. And for that, and perhaps maybe this is where the rubber really beats the road. How does this all work? And as all of you probably already know, there are three factors that we focus on. Cost of money. Interest rate has been the conversation, obviously, for a while. But obviously, or maybe not so obvious, maybe surprisingly, interest rate has really been pretty steady coming out of COVID. The Feds have done a fairly decent job keeping it steady. It is elevated compared to what it's been in prior year, but if you spin out 20, 30 years out, it is within the acceptable range of what we've seen over the past 20, 30 years. Second is where perhaps a lot of conversation, I'm sure when you're reviewing this proposal, you spend time on, the acceptable loan to value. At least I would suggest to spend some time there. All of us developers here, we are dependent on the market, meaning the market, the financial market requires a certain level of equity stack for us to make project work, meaning us as your partners, developer in the city, what is the equity stack that the market is looking for us to bring in order to do business? And what we've seen is generally they look for 70 to 30 or more often, sometimes 65 to 35 ratio. And what I mean by that is for every dollar that we put in the project, they will be looking for us at a 70 to 30 cents in that dollar, and sometimes 35 cents to 65 cents. So if we cannot put together or capture a scenario where we're coming in as a team somewhere around that 30% range, it doesn't matter if it's us or anybody else, we're going to have a challenge financing the project, and it's not going to go forward. The third is the acceptable debt service coverage ratio. That is part of our request is to share in the ad valorem taxes, and we'll talk about it a little bit further. It is, we all know the pressures there's been with the commodities market. Prices have risen, and really what we've seen really since COVID, prices have spiked up. They're not as volatile anymore, but they've stayed up. And that has put a lot of pressure on the community as far as affordability across the board. It does not matter what the income level. So our ability to share an ad valorem help us depress that pressure so we can have a project everybody can participate in. So phase one, as we mentioned, it's a two-phase project. The phase one is the parking structure, 250 parking spaces. We projected as a cost of $7.5 million. And the 30,000 commercial retail space at $13.9 million, with a total project cost of phase one of $21.4 million. Now, we anticipate, again, keep in mind that equity stack I was talking about earlier in terms of our share, what we have to take on debt and money we have to bring in. We anticipate an equity deck on that phase at $14.1 million that we'll have to capture. And there'll be a shortfall of roughly $7.3 million that we're looking for assistance on. So a key point about this is this: if you look at the shortfall, the 7.3, it's actually less than the required cost of that 250 parking garage of $7.5 million. I think that's a key component we should be thinking about in terms of that cost of that requirement relative to everything else that we're going to deliver on the project. Our request to you, we felt the best way to communicate it to separate it into two categories, what we call the in-kind contribution from the city and the cash contribution from the city. So the in-kind contribution on phase one is the portion of the land that it sits on, the 0.65 acres, that valued at $650,000. We've calculated the fees at $2.6 million. We're asking for waivers of that, impact fees and the like. And we intend to utilize the $4 million that's expressed in the RFP, and that's in this phase, bringing the contribution from the city 7.3. Again, front loading some of the primary requirement of the parking garage infrastructure on the first phase. And as you can see, our request is actually less than the value or the cost of constructing the parking garage itself. Phase two is the 150 Class A apartment plus an additional 325 parking spaces. We projected that cost at $55.3 million. And again, that ratio, again, that equity deck, what the market is looking for, that doesn't change wherever he's standing here talking. We project that as $43.4 million, leaving a shortfall of $13.8 million. That same analogy, the same structure of in-kind and cash contribution, we again the value of the land associated with that phase of $2.3 million. We've calculated the fees at 3.9 impact fees and asking for waivers of that. In totaling a total of 6.3, we are asking for additional cash investment from the city of roughly $5 million on the 150 unit part. It's been part of dealing with all the stuff we've been talking about earlier, the cost pressures in the market. Also, there is some additional embedded costs in this proposal. That is the stormwater improvement that will be needed for City Hall, because currently the lots that are provided to us is part of the stormwater management system for City Hall. So that project, we have to deal with that. We're projected $1 million of costs involved in that. And of course, we intend to invest quite a bit on the downtown infrastructure as far as a streetscape and all of the things that make it a congruent space for people to walk and bike and all that stuff. And that total contribution request of cash is $7.5 million that we're requesting. In summary, the total project cost we projected at $77 million, phase 1 at 21.4 and phase 2 at 55.3 million. And what we are requesting from the city in terms of a cash investment is $12.5 million. $4 million of phase 1, $7.5 million in phase 2. If you look at that request at 12.5, $1 million of it is associated with the relocating the city's stormwater needs because of the lot that we have. And then $7.5 million is for that parking garage to support city parking shortfalls required by the RFP. Back a little bit. The point there that I don't want anybody to miss is that even though we're asking for $12.5 million in cash, roughly $8.5 million of that request is for infrastructure needs in the RFP, the parking garage and stormwater that is separate and apart from what's needed for our development. In that math, any proposal, any evaluation of the finances, that $8 million must be accounted for. You have a huge shortfall because it is independent of what we need in terms of parking, stormwater for the development of the Class A buildings that we laid out. So to recap the summary in terms of a partnership, what we again trying to deliver, we intend to deliver are the following: the 250 space parking garage, an additional 100 spaces for the 30,000 square foot retail, 225 space for the 150 unit complex. And we think that infrastructure, again, provides a catalyst for what the city is trying to do, what we want to be partnered with you in doing. $8.5 million, as mentioned before, of infrastructure improvement. Our project, we intend, will be at $80 million of new taxable value, generating $16.4 million of ad valorem taxes over the first 10 years, and of course, continuing beyond that. And we are requesting to share in that first 10 year. We expect to generate to support roughly 400 to 500 construction jobs, an additional 60 to 86 permanent jobs across operation and commercial space, plus 200 new residents, increased foot traffic and demands for those retail spaces, both the new ones we bring in, the existing ones. We believe our package enhanced downtown vibrancy and is responsive to your request, both in the design and the financial component that we believe that is key to support long-term revitalization, walkability, and engage sustainable economic growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. In closing, we were able to introduce to you our company. Again, we are not just here to make a development profit. We have a heart for this community, and so therefore we want to bring a community-focused high-end product to downtown. You've seen our team. You can't find a better team that's had such long experience into making mixed-use development actually come to reality. You've seen our proposal in 2 phases. You've seen some beautiful renderings from Baker Barrios that really provides for engagement in the blend of exterior to interior. And we talked about deal economics, which is so very important. Before we take any questions, I wanted to give you a story about many years back in 2013, 2014, when I used to be the broker of Stevens Plantation. I used to actually call the city manager once a week, 7 o'clock, because that's the kind of personal service you're going to get from me. And he asked me this question. He said, Veronica, out of all the things that you're doing for the city of St. Cloud, what is the most exciting thing for you? And I must say that the most exciting part is having a hand in seeing this community grow, the vibrancy that very, very significant and community-focused development actually brings, and for the enjoyment of all. You see, I want to be able to hold my head up high if I run into you in the grocery store, because we've delivered what we promised and that we've exceeded your expectations. As I look at this picture, the roof deck, I imagine myself and my family hanging out there, because it is a public roof deck, enjoying the art, enjoying the landscape and the streetscape, and looking at downtown St. Cloud, and really being able to connect with each other. Perhaps I'll be taking a walk with my grandchildren down the street, supporting all the local businesses, and maybe you will be having a drink in one of our favorite restaurants, enjoying the company of your friends and family, and really having that sense of community that only you and I and the rest of St. Cloud actually knows what it means. So I will say that one day very soon, I hope I can wave at you from a distance at the St. Cloud Exchange and really know and embrace this feeling of a place that we can truly call our own. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much for your presentation. Do we have any comments from council? Councilmember Gilbert.
Thank you very much. And I was thinking about once my grandchildren and their grandchildren move out of my house, I'd like one of these apartments. That may not happen for a while, but I'm okay with that. We just one thing that you'd asked for a tax abatement for 10 years at estimated $12.5 million, but you expected the finished product or one of the finished products to be done in 5 years. Would those tax abatements help or hurt you through 5 more years of when you're operating and making money during that time between phase 1 and phase 2? Just a question, why 10 years versus 5 years? Because I understand as a general contractor myself, you're not making money when you're building, but when you're starting to derive revenues, I don't know why the abatements need to be, plus the cash in hand needs to be asked. And that's the one question I have. I yield back to you after the answer, Mayor.
Yes. So the abatement, the phase 2 of the project where the apartment's at. So that's why so really what it does is when you think about the ad valorem taxes, is that there's some very important component that whenever you do a multifamily, it is really the first part is density, right? If we walked in here and said, hey, we're going to do 50-unit apartment, that one had to have the economies of scale to make it work. And then what's happened in the market, the commodity prices have risen so high that it becomes unaffordable for everybody. And then so part of that incentivization, I guess I'm creating a new word now, to make this work is lowering that cost so we can pay our debt service and all that, and that's sharing into the ad valorem. Now, we say sharing it typically is always a negotiating point. I've always thought I would do a pro rata share. So the percent that the city invests versus the percent we invest. In part of the negotiation, the city may have various desires with the people occupying the space, may decide to increase higher the first 5 years, lower the second 5 years. So that's why we lay out the 10 years, but also to spend it out that we know we can handle in volatility period. Because 5 years now tend to be not what it used to be. And so we need to stretch things out in a way that makes sense, given the cost matrix.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Paul.
Hi, you stated 12.5 would be your action cost from the city. Phase 1 was 4 million. Can you confirm phase 2 amount?
Right. So total, the cash contribution is 12.5. That's include the 4.
Yes.
Right.
What is the cost for phase 2?
Phase 2, not looking at it here, will be the difference between the data, 8 point.
Okay.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right,
And keep in mind, I like to point that out. So even though we're asking for 12.5, there is a requirement of $7.5 million garage and stormwater in there. So it's really, in terms of what requests, is trying to build that requirement and still fit within a model with the market.
City Attorney?
Yeah, I just wanted to put it out there initially because the proposal with regard to the contribution included a waiver of about over $2 million in mobility and impact fees. To preserve the credibility of the mobility fees and impact studies that the city has in place that generate the impact fees, you cannot waive mobility fee and impact fees. So there would have to be some alternative source that actually paid those, whether it comes from the city or whether it comes from somewhere else. So that would have to be addressed at some point.
What was that amount of the impact fees
I
or
thought it was
mobility
about
fees?
2 million. I
We
thought.
calculated two to 3 million on each stage for about come back from 5 million. So I know there was some recent changes on the numbers, so we were projecting out. So with some
So-
flexibility.
Correct
I
me if
wrote
I'm
it
wrong.
down. It was 2.65 in phase one, and it was 3.96 in phase two.
Okay.
So we might as well add that to the cash contributions.
Yeah,
It's got to
typically,
be paid.
the city has never and cannot waive mobility fees or impact fees for any project. In the past, well, I take that back. There are certain permissible projects that impact fees can be waived, typically affordable housing projects and those things. However, typically when we've done in the past, those impact fees come from some source. So they're not a waiver. They can be credits, but there's some cash source that leads to those. Yes. So it'd have to be added back in.
All right,
Yeah,
Councilmember
if I may
Urban?
add something, please. So, and we will count that before. So when we're saying adding it is a cash in, cash out. So yes, oftentimes it is credited in. So in terms of this a net, obviously we're bringing the project a net zero that we're trying to create for the city as opposed to an additional $2 million or $3 million that you're looking for. So I kind of want to make that distinction. So it's not a true in the technical, in a real financing side in terms of additional to $3 million.
Councilmember Urban?
Yes, thank you for your presentation, and thank you everybody for being here today. I know you all worked very hard on these presentations, so we really appreciate that. Our city attorney, I think, answered one of my questions about the impact credits. I don't know if there's any. I know we had certain targeted industries that we were working with economic development on. If this might not be one of those, but I don't know if there's any way to work with that in the future on impact credits. Is that possible?
Well, we certainly can look at that. There is a provision for targeted industries within the law, but we'd have to look at that.
Okay. And then on the parking garage, do you guys plan to, for the public spaces, are they going to be charged spaces, charged for parking downtown?
Yeah, well, so the parking garage is a requirement of the city, so you drive a lot how the operation end up being for it because we have the cost to build it consistent with the requirement. So,
okay.
So any kind of fee will be based on negotiation of what you want to do.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all.
Deputy Mayor Fletcher?
Didn't even hit my button yet.
Oh, it says Deputy City Clerk. I'm sorry. Member Wagner.
Thank you.
I thought it says
On
Deputy.
the second phase with the apartments, is any of that low income housing at all that we could use or have?
So we've considered that. However, depending on what it is that the city decides, we can be flexible. And of course, that really matters in terms of financing of how we bring certain dollars to the project. At the end of the day, really, everything is negotiable. And if what the desire of the city is to bring a little bit more affordable housing in there, I mean, the numbers would probably have to be re-looked, if that's a word. And and certainly is something that we're very open to discussing.
Thank you.
If I may add something to that is, so part of that pressure we've been talking about when we talk about affordability. So for example, here, a one-bedroom apartment, we look at comparables around $1,500 square foot. If you look at the AMI requirement by HUD, 80% AMI persons pushing towards that 1,500. So there's becoming a place here because we can't build something that pushes beyond the market. That is, we can't be an apartment complex and say we're going to rent a one bedroom at $3,000, but nobody can afford it. So so the affordability caps how far you can go, but yet the pressures of the market is increasing, really increasing cost to the point when you look at the affordable market, it's reaching into really the regular market, if you will. So in that sense, so we are. When you look at a one bedroom in the 1,500, 1,600, we pretty much, especially if you go to 120% AMI, we will be reaching a lot of the police officers, teachers that fits into that market in terms of that workforce. Even though this is not affordable housing development type scenario, but the market has brought us to the point where, some of those 80 to 120% AMI would be served.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Gilbert. Are you on there?
Yeah, thank you.
You didn't hit your light.
I was trying. Thank you. I want to thank everybody for joining us here today. This is going to be one of the most significant projects in the city's history. So I appreciate all of the money spent up front and all of the work that you guys have done to get here today. I did want to follow up to what the city attorney had said. Also, Member Urban, when we did look at the mobility fee ordinance, when we were going through that process to update them and raise them, I do believe that we did put in their economic incentives for targeted industries, like they said. I would ask the city manager if that information could be sent to the entire CRA board so that we're able to look at that and see if we could figure out how we can incorporate some of that into this project so it allows us flexibility for your guys' financing and modeling. So thank you.
Appreciate that.
Councilmember Gilbert.
Yeah, and a two-pronged question. Again, we can't waive fees, Mr. Manzares, but we can use those fees as we have for other developments and credits towards this. So it's not cash out of hand. It's not a waive of fees, but a credit towards those fees. Is that what you explained?
Well, let's stick with probably the easiest one to look at is your transportation mobility fee, right? So the ordinance and the law allows for there to be credits done. However, it places restrictions on the credit. So the improvement has to contribute to the transportation network for the city from a transportation perspective or from a multiple mobility improvement. So we'd have to look at it and say, is any of the improvements that we're talking about as part of this P3 project, would they be credit eligible based on the existing? Do they provide additional capacity for the transportation network or the mobility network for the city to be able to do that? The ordinance is pretty tight when it comes to that. Frankly, probably the only one you could reasonably even take a look at is the parking garage.
Right.
And I don't necessarily think the parking garage would meet that criteria that's currently under the ordinance. As you know, from some of the agreements that we've entered into where we've around credits, they usually involve capital improvements for roadways, framework roads, those things that are moving additional traffic through the city. So I think that would be a stretch.
Yeah, that would be my heavy ask, and it would be a stretch, but we have this downtown area. One thing we are doing for transportation is we're making it a walkable city versus a vehicle city. Therefore, it would be an improvement to our infrastructure for transportation. But that, again, Dan, that's just a stretch, and that's what I'm thinking is this brings less cars and traffic and more walkable stuff. So that was just a question, just a few questions. I'm sorry, we don't get to talk much, so I always ask the lawyer because at the end he wins, and he's got going on. So thank you very much. I yield back to you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Paul.
Hi, thank you for being here today. I want to add to that. I have one question. With the cost of things going up and during your construction period and to also stay on schedule, will you be looking at local vendors to assist in the project?
Well, and this is the reason why I think that our team actually brings this type of expertise and experience into this project, because as you know, there are many situations out there where a project is promised, but because they're not constantly in the market. They don't have the same pool of people that will be able to come to the construction site. I mean, that's a real challenge nowadays. And so, so I go back to our team, and I'll tell you that this team is like no other. And you've seen a lot of the mixed-use development projects that are current and also in the past, and they've been able to bring, if it has to be local or within the area, whatever we have to do to be able to really deliver on our promise is what we're going to do.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
I just wanted to speak, the last time on the mobility fees, it's something that we can discuss offline. Is the economic incentives, Mr. Benzeres, obviously state law, and then the economic incentives we adopted by ordinance, right? So the city council could relook at that ordinance and make changes to align it with a project of this caliber?
You certainly can look at it. My only caution to you is that the viability of any mobility fee or impact fee is based on the study that is utilized by the experts. So you'd have to go back to the individuals that did the mobility fee study, for example, upon which your ordinance is based, and make sure they are comfortable with those economic incentives. So that, remember, the purpose of mobility fees and the studies are based on the future capital improvements and future development to pay for those capital improvements. So you don't want to, for lack of a better expression, upset the apple cart by giving away too many of those future dollars.
For sure. Thank you, Dan.
Everybody good? All right, I've got one question. The parking garage, so was that phase one?
Yes, phase
Uh,
one. We're
behind the
front
St.
loading.
Cloud.
Yep, we're front loading the requirement of the city in phase one.
Okay, that's commercial, the ground floor, and then,
Yes,
And then-
commercial in the ground floor. And really the reason for that is we have to be able to generate some kind of revenue to be able to sustain the cost and the debt service coverage ratio. So it's so important that, that as we front load the parking garage, which is, I'll tell you, I am all in the fact that we need a garage in downtown St. Cloud. So, and to make that work, we would have the retail and commercial together with that in phase one.
okay, so the land behind the St. Cloud Hotel, that's just parking with retail at the ground floor.
Yes, Mayor.
That's okay, thank you. All right, do we have any other questions? All right, well, thank y'all very much for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much.
G3.
I think we could just take a minute so staff can come load the presentation for
All
G3.
right, we'll go ahead and take a 5-minute break.
Drive, Mount Dora, Florida. And I do see our presentation, so that's awesome. So
Sorry
first
about
and
that.
foremost, just want to introduce myself. My name is Jake Gunther. I'm representing G3 Development and also our development team today. So a little bit about G3 Development and who we are. G3 Development is a family-based, family-owned and operated real estate development company based out of Mount Dora, Florida. We've been open and operational for the past 25 years, where we have had the benefit and pleasure to complete complex development projects throughout the Central Florida market. Throughout that past 25 years, we've developed an expertise across the full development process, including feasibility, due diligence, acquisitions, financing, entitlements, development, and construction management. Throughout the past 10 years, we've really shifted our focus to partner with municipalities and helping them achieve their development goals. Throughout the past 10 years, we've probably responded to 20 plus RFPs, RFIs, RFQs, and then have also submitted some unsolicited proposals ourselves. Throughout the past 10 years, we've been fortunate enough to partner with and win those RFPs and RFQs in cities like Mount Dora, Eustis, Wildwood, Sanford, Ocoee, and Tavares, some of which we are still in contract with and working with today. Throughout the past 25 years, we've been able to do over $250 million in completed commercial development projects, which we still currently own and manage over $100 million in commercial real estate. And throughout the past 25 years, we've really been able to drive down our process, which is a collaborative, team-driven process. You're going to hear a lot about our team today. And we truly believe through that collaborative, team-driven approach, we deliver high-quality, tailored solutions for our clients. So a little bit about our team. First and foremost, I do think this is the best possible team we could put in front of you. And we have a ton of municipal experience. First and foremost is GAI Consultants and their Community Solutions Group, which I know you all are very familiar with. They're the leading Central Florida land planning firm, and they've done work with tens of cities all over the state of Florida. We've got FinFrock. They're the largest parking structure builder in the Southeast, also extremely experienced with municipal work and projects. But they don't only build parking garages. They also have a ton of experience doing apartments, traditional retail, hotels, and other types of buildings. And last and definitely not least are the Atrium companies. They bring a ton of multi-family development and management experience to our team, as well as a seasoned brokerage team with experience leasing hundreds of thousands of square feet throughout Central Florida. So again, we feel this team is the best possible team to complete this project, and we've got a strong commitment to quality, to on-time delivery, and exceeding projects' expectations. If you talk to any of the other cities we've worked with in the past, I feel like they would tell you we've done all of those things. So I'm going to introduce GAI briefly. Like I said, their work in the city of St. Cloud kind of speaks for itself. They are a national firm, not just in the state of Florida, but they are one of the premier land planning firms in the state of Florida. Here in St. Cloud, they've worked on the Lakefront and Waterfront Master Plan, the Florida Avenue Trail Plan, the Chisholm Park Master Plan, the Ranch Master Plan, and the Aquatic Center Expansion Master Plan. We've also been fortunate enough to work with them in the city of Wildwood, the city of Tavares, the city of Ocoee, and the city of Sanford. And these are some renderings of some projects that we have done with them in the past. I'm assuming you guys get to keep these presentations so you can look at them at a future date. Perfect. I'll go rather quickly then. So next, I'd like to introduce Atrium Companies and Jill.
Okay.
And name and address for the record, please.
No problem. Jill Roberts, Atrium Commercial Real Estate, 201 South Bumby Avenue, Orlando 32803. My name is Jill Roberts, and I'm joined here today by my partners, John Paul Beaulieu and Alexander Spock, and together we are the Atrium Companies. Atrium is comprised of 4 different divisions. We have the Atrium Management Multifamily Division, which currently manages over 6,400 residential units here throughout the state of Florida. We have Atrium Capital Group. That's our development arm that's focused on mixed-use residential projects, of which you'll see some, and I'm sure you guys will be familiar with some of them in places like Winter Garden and the Milk District in Orlando. And then we have Atrium Commercial Real Estate, which is our full-service brokerage and commercial property management arm. We are headquartered in the Main Street District of the Milk District in Orlando, where we've developed several infill projects, but our scope goes across Central Florida and the state of Florida. We bring together decades of experience across residential, commercial, and public sector work. We've worked closely with local governments here. We were previously the exclusive real estate broker for the Osceola County School Board for 7 years, one of the appointed real estate brokers for the city of Orlando, as well as the exclusive broker for the Orlando Utility Commission in the adaptive reuse project of the historic Ivanhoe building, which was the original City of Orlando power plant that was built in 1924. For this particular project, our team is going to be focused on the residential and commercial leasing and management. I think what sets our team apart is our cross-sector experience. So we really understand commercial vitality coupled with residential livability, which is very important when you're building mixed-use projects. I've seen one too many mixed-use projects go sour because the developers do not know how to cohesively mix those uses. In your packet, you're going to find examples of mixed-use projects that we've delivered, typically in the smaller range, because infill development is typically on smaller sites, and smaller projects fit the fabric of those communities better. But you will see projects like the Tremaine Boyd redevelopment in Winter Garden off of Plant Street, the Milk Stacks project, again, in the Milk District off of Bumby. There we go. Here's some photos. That's Tremaine Boyd there. So the Tremaine Boyd project had 22 luxury apartments and then 8,000 plus or minus square feet of retail on the bottom, located across from the city-sponsored parking garage, which the city used impact fees to build. And then the Milk Stacks, which we have the grand opening on Saturday. We anticipate about 600 people to show up. That was a collaborative project between the city of Orlando, the Milk Street, Main Street District, and the residents of this community, because again, these projects have to fit in the fabric of the community that they're being built in, or else you will have a nightmare on your hands with residents. Our team specializes in placemaking. So we craft curated environments, not only to support your downtown vision and what you're already creating, but to act as a catalyst for future redevelopment so that the value of your properties spread out throughout downtown increases as well, and then you can sell those. In terms of leasing and mixed-use leasing, we've worked on multiple projects. I know Veronica mentioned Craig Usler, which Craig is a prolific mixed-use developer in town. So we do lease portions of Creative Village on the retail, first floor retail side. We were also involved in the Thornton Park Central redevelopment in Thornton Park, developed by Tom Usler. In the Tremaine Boyd project, we have a Winter Garden redevelopment with 5,000 square feet of retail on the bottom, College Park, Edgewater Drive redevelopment projects, and then Park Avenue and Winter Park. We're excited to dive deeper into our approach and how we do things. We will let Jake present our vision first, and then during the Q&A, we'd be happy to answer any additional questions on those projects specifically. Now I'd like to introduce our partner, Kyle Myers, who is VP of Project Development for FinFrock.
Hi, Kyle Myers, 2400 Apopka Boulevard, Apopka, Florida. Appreciate everyone's time today. I just want to spend a little bit of time to introduce FinFrock, our role on the team, and the value that we bring both to G3 as the lead as well as the city overall. At Finfrock, we are a vertically integrated design build company with a specialty in parking garages. We're actually one of the nation's largest deliverers of parking garage projects. And our unique capabilities with that is really the approach that we take as that single source of responsibility. So we perform in-house the architecture, structural engineering, we manufacture the products just up the road at our Popka facility, and we serve as the design build general contractor as well. And that unique approach really allows us to deliver projects at a very high quality in looking at the long-term kind of best use aspects of the parking garage project. So as that single source of responsibility, we have various portions of our company that are dedicated to the design and construction of parking garages, including maintenance. I actually have a maintenance wing of our company as well, so that we have a way to back check and ensure that the details that we have associated with our delivery system are holding up to the test of time and truly delivering the best overall life cycle project when it comes to structured parking projects. And that single source of responsibility also allows us to be in a unique position for a guaranteed price and schedule. So as we get through the due diligence phase of the project, and the stakeholders all have a chance to weigh in, and we understand exactly what the final product will be, we will be in a position to guarantee the price and schedule to help ensure just the financial wherewithal of the project for all of the stakeholders involved with that. So we've got extensive experience, over 350 parking garages, but there's a few in our relative recent history that I think are very good parallels that I'd like to just highlight for a brief moment. The first one is, there we go, is the city of Wildwood. And that was in partnership with G3. I'm sure you're somewhat familiar with this project. Very similar overall in terms of the goals and the visions of the project, with a parking structure downtown to serve the overall area. This was a relatively tight site, to be quite honest, right there, to fit in nicely between the road and the railroad tracks. But overall, this is one that I think fits the visions, very similar parallel to what you all are trying to do, maybe on a slightly different scale, but nonetheless, a quality project to see. Only 125 total spaces within that, but really allowed the other facets of everything to kind of come together. Unique aspect of this project, which isn't entirely unique, but it feels relevant, is the stormwater aspect of it that's incorporated in the ground floor of this garage also. So just wanted to highlight that project. Some other municipal projects that we've done in Central Florida, the City of Winter Gardens downtown garage. This was let out by a slightly different process. The city built that directly, and so we responded to a design build RFP for the city. But for anybody that's been to that downtown area, you understand, and like you're trying to do here, how critical it is to have that quality parking structure that can allow the vibrancy of the area to continue to thrive. So that one had a total of 527 spaces. And then lastly, another one that is on a similar scale, if I can. There we go. The city of Ocala's downtown garage as well. Another story that the city built that one directly, or we built it for the city. So we responded to the design build RFP directly, and we're able to come in and build 402 spaces on a city lot in a manner that served an initial need that they had, an existing need, as well as opened up opportunity for them to offer other lots for development within the city's purview. So appreciate your time. I'll turn it back over to Jake here to go over to the details of this proposal.
So now you've just heard about our team. I'm going to dive a little bit more into our project specifics now. So our proposed development for the downtown site in St. Cloud's represents a transformative development opportunity to integrate modern design with the city's already current historic charm. By blending innovative architectural elements, high quality materials, and thoughtful urban planning, we will create a destination that enhances the vibrancy of downtown while it's respecting its heritage. Our project, it has three main components: the parking garage, our high-end residential units, and the commercial destination, and we use that word destination intentionally. The parking garage, we plan to build a 375 stall structured parking garage, 250 which meets the RFP requirements for the public spaces, with 125 additional spaces for our mixed-use development. As Finfrock mentioned, they built 350 parking garages. They're very experienced. One thing we've learned in the last 10 years is municipalities want the parking garages to blend into their downtown and become a part of the fabric of it versus stand out as some monolithic structure. So we've got some plans with different architectural screenings, materials, and whatnot to blend that into the downtown. With the high-end residential units, we're targeting 30 to 40 upscale residential units supporting downtown growth, helping with that master plan goal. Again, our goal here is to target professionals, empty nesters, and young families. In our experience, these are the people that like living downtown and taking advantage of the amenities they have to offer. And last but not least, the high-end residential units promote urban living in a walkable environment. I know with GAI, you guys have been working on creating kind of a comprehensive walkable downtown through the lake and all the way through. And so we believe this will be a great first step in kind of creating that walkable downtown that everybody's looking for. And then last but not least, our commercial destination. We're modeling this off the rail yard project we are currently under construction with in Wildwood. Wildwood was in a little bit different situation than you all were. They had one restaurant in their downtown, and that was really it. And so they really, really wanted to create a sense of place and create a destination that people will go to versus driving to the villages because that's their neighbor. And so we worked hard with some local and regional tenants to create a true commercial destination, a unique experience that's unlike anywhere else in Central Florida. That will draw people, we think, all over from Central Florida. And because that's what we truly believe is needed right now, is another real commercial destination in downtown St. Cloud that'll catalyze and kick off further developments through value add and new construction down the road. Here's a couple slides that kind of detail. Unfortunately, it looks like it got caught up a little bit, but the top gray L-shaped building is where we envision our residential units. Adjacent to City Hall, you can see the parking structure with the cars on top. And then across 10th is where we envision the commercial project to be adjacent to the hotel. This is what we envision the garage looking like in the future. And again, we're open if we get into the point where, we're lucky enough to be working with you guys in the development agreement and you want red brick instead of that, we can definitely do that. So get some more views of the parking garage. Our residential inspiration, we don't have vertically integrated mixed use included in this project. It's all horizontally integrated. As Jill discussed, it's a tricky thing to do, and you got to be in the right environment. We believe that eventually we will be able to do some vertically integrated mixed use in St. Cloud, but with this project, we're just proposing some horizontally integrated mixed use. So the apartments will go first floor to third floor. And then our commercial inspiration, again, we want to create a place for families and really everybody to come visit and experience. In Wildwood, we brought in 2 tenants. One, the Yardery. They've got a location in Sanford, Florida, and also in downtown Mount Dora. And then Brick City Hospitality Group. They're pretty predominantly centered out of downtown Ocala. The Yardery opened a Yardery concept here, which is a family-friendly, fast casual, outdoor-centered style restaurant. And then Brick City Hospitality is opening a concept called Lynx, which is a golf simulator concept where you can go grab a bite to eat, have a drink, and go play Pebble Beach in Wildwood, Florida if you want to. So we've talked to them, some other dining and retail tenants, and they're all interested in this project. So our proposed timeline, it's broken down into 3 phases, but our construction phase is just 1 phase because we want to create as minimal of a disruption to your downtown as we can. We figured that out in the last 10 years, that the quicker we can get done obviously the least amount of disruption for everybody living, working, and playing down here. So phase one is our pre-development and agreement execution phase, where we'll do the initial negotiations with the city CRA, refining project scope, discussing financial terms. Month 2 to 4, we move to our due diligence. We'll be doing a little bit of that in month 1 and 2. We'll be doing some feasibility studies. As the other group mentioned, we'll need to look at the retention. And there's also some utility work that we'll need to look at on site. And then we'll conduct our preliminary site analysis in month 2 to 4. Month 5 to 6, we'll move on to the finalization and execution of the development agreement with the city and CRA. So that's when we've got our signed agreement and our marching orders then to move forward. We know exactly what's going to get built, exactly where it's going to go, how long it's going to take, what it's going to cost, all those fun things. And then we're charged with our marching orders to get the project designed and approved. We anticipate that process taking 6 to 9 months. We usually do a pretty iterative process, but again, we are open. I know you guys have included the public on a lot of your master planning and other efforts throughout the years, but we do like to usually include the public somewhat in this process just to make sure they feel like they have some kind of community buy-in. But anyways, we'll kick off the architectural and engineering design, create our preliminary site plans, and give that to city staff and you all to review. Month 9 through 10, we'll move on to city planning and zoning approvals, making sure we are compatible with any historic district compliance and all those fun things. And then month 11 and 12, we move on to the finalization of the construction documents and start the permitting process. Phase 3 is our construction and lease up phase, which takes 12 to 18 months and happens concurrently. Month 13 through 15, site preparation, demo, none really needed. And utility work, there is going to be some utility work that's going to be done for this project. So we anticipate that to take 2 months. Then months 16 through 30 is when the fun stuff happens, the vertical construction. Again, this is a single phase construction approach. So we intend to build the parking garage, the commercial, and the residential all at the same time. Starting month 19 through month 30, we'll begin our lease up efforts with the goal then to be at month 30 fully leased up. So when we get to month 31 through 36, that's just us working with our tenants, whether they might have some specific build outs or whatnot, so that they can then get open and operational by month 36. So in summation, it's a total estimated timeline, 4 to 6 months for agreement execution, 6 to 9 months for design approvals, and 12 to 18 months for construction and lease up. We anticipate this project to be somewhere between $30 and $40 million. The variable there is how many residential units and whether we do 6,000 to 8,000 square feet of commercial. And we believe through a 10-year period, but that'll generate somewhere between $8 and $9 million in ad valorem tax revenue. So now we will open it up for any questions.
Member Loading.
Just a quick question. How many stories are we looking at on those?
For the garage, it's ground plus 2, ground plus 3.
Ground plus 3?
Yes, so 3 levels,
And
3
then-
stories.
And then the residential is?
3 stories.
Okay. And then the commercial?
The commercial most likely will be 1 story with a rooftop element. So
okay.
The rooftop element, that's similar to the Wildwood project?
yes, sir. Similar to Wildwood, or if you have been in downtown Mount Dora recently, we just opened the artery in downtown Mount Dora. They've got a rooftop element. That's more likely what it'll be like, a way for the patrons that don't want to deal with the kids running around in the yard to get up and out of it and on the rooftop.
All right. Yeah, the rendering kind of shows it'll look like the facade will look like a 2-story though around it.
Yes, sir.
Just behind that, is that going to be just the facade, the front wall?
Yes, sir. I mean, technically it is a 2-story building, but all the space on the upstairs, other than the bathrooms, are exterior.
Okay. Member Gilbert.
Yeah, so just, I think you clarified it, Mayor. The third story will be open air, right?
Yes, sir. 2nd story, but yes, sir.
2nd story.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
one story with an open air terrace on the roof.
And you propose that building to be behind the St. Cloud Hotel?
Yes, sir.
Is that
Yep. The goal is once the hotel gets done, I know, I didn't shake my head, create a fun commercial project across the street from Breeze, create some synergies there.
all right? City manager?
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that recently, I think the city, or not recently, a prior city council adopted a zoning code for our downtown that requires a minimum of 3 stories.
Minimum of 3 stories. Okay. So, I mean, we could look at that. Is that something you guys would be open to non-allowing? So you have to build a 3-story building in downtown St. Cloud?
The zoning requires a minimum of 3 stories.
Interesting. That is something we are definitely open to. We might have to include some office space. Throughout Central Florida, we're pretty successful with doing what we call executive suites. Creates a smaller office footprint, but still pretty accessible for most tenants. So we'd look at probably doing something like that if we had to do an additional story on the 2nd floor.
Member Gilbert?
Yeah, one thing we're looking at in St. Cloud, is commercial and office space. Those are 2 things that are in desperate needs here. We've got enough houses. We're cool with that.
Yes, sir.
But we really need some commercial and some office space for our ever-growing city. So we did adapt to 3 just because of we're kind of landlocked here in what I'd like to say historic St. Cloud.
Yes, sir.
So that's why that was passed. I think it was probably 18 months ago. If I'm corrected, city manager, please let me know. But I think it was somewhere in that area. But we're open for anything. We're so excited that everybody's here today. I think the citizens are excited, and I'd like to thank you for your presentation. I'm going to yield back to you, Mayor and Council, if they have the pleasure of any more questions.
Member Urban?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate you being here. So as far as the financial incentives that you're requesting, up to $4 million applied towards infrastructure improvement. Is that that's what you're requesting for this project?
That is correct. Yep.
Okay. And that's all for now. Thank you.
Vice Chair Fletcher?
The only thing I had to say was thank you for working again diligently on this project and coming here to speak with us today. One of the things that I'm liking that I'm seeing across the board here is family organizations coming forth. So I really appreciate that factor. And if I have any other questions, we'll be in touch. But thank you.
My dad wanted me to let everybody know he wishes he could be here today, but I brought my brother and my sister.
That's better.
Yeah.
Families like fish, though. If they stay after 3 days, they start to smell. So
All right. And you said between 30 to 40 units residential in the back behind City Hall?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay.
Again, the goal there was you already have residents, not come in with some giant multifamily proposal that scares all of them. So helping tie into that as development goes outwards, if that makes sense. We truly believe this is like the first step in a 20-year process, that downtown St. Cloud will continue to transform. And so kudos for you guys for taking it.
City Manager?
Thank you. I know I shocked you a minute ago with the 3-story minimum, but to be able to compare the different proposals, do you have an estimate on the commercial square footage that you would be including?
Yeah, right now, I mean, maximum 8,000 square feet. It could be 6. In Wildwood, it was 6,000. We want to get 8,000 square feet done here. It's just going to be ultimate. We don't have the tenants exactly ironed out yet, so dependent on their needs, but minimum 6,000.
Thank you.
To get clarification, you're saying if with the 2-story, you're at 6,000, but if you add the 3-story, it would be
8.
8. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Member Paul?
9.
About 9,000.
Yeah, math's not my strong suit.
That's why you got siblings, right?
All right.
Me and my brother
Thank you
share
for
a brain
being
too.
here today. Member Wagner asked on the first presenter, I'm going to ask you, you indicated luxury, but how affordable will these residential units be?
They're going to be market rate apartments. Rents are crazy nowadays, and they're only going up. I mean, we are going to try to deliver these as economically as possible. That's our goal. But realistically, rents will probably be somewhere between $2 and $3 monthly a square foot.
Member Loading.
That was, my question was, what are we looking at square footage on those? What was your thinking here?
Anywhere between 1,000 and 1,400 square feet, just depending on 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom. Right now, no 3 bedrooms planned. Yeah.
Makes sense.
All right. Do we have any other comments? All right. Well, I want to thank you, your entire team. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
Appreciate your proposal. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the next proposal. We have Atlantic Housing Partners.
Good afternoon. I'll jump right in. I think we all know why we're here, and I'll see if I can use your little remote here effectively. Yeah, there we go. For introductions, I'm Scott Culp. I'm a principal of Atlantic Housing Partners. We're the proposer for this particular development, and we thank you for the opportunity to provide you this presentation. And I want to applaud the vision of the CRA and the City Council with regard to revitalization and transformation in downtown St. Cloud. We recognize the importance of that and how communities can become stale, and without that vision and that foresight, you have no growth and revitalization. And we appreciate the opportunity to provide your proposal in that regard. I'll try and stick with the format that you guys had asked for from us. And first, we'll talk about our development team. We're what we like to refer to as vertically integrated. We are the developer, general contractor, property management company. I hold the license as a general contractor. As I hate to admit it these days, I've been doing this for 40 years. This month is the 40th year. April, I think 1985 was my first multifamily development in Central Florida. Our principals, there's 3 of us. We're all here in Central Florida. We're based in Winter Park. And of course, we've been developing communities around the country for approximately 40 years. Atlantic Housing, of course, is our development entity and controls all aspects of the community. Canton Construction, of course, is our general contractor. It's our own general contractor. It's not third party out to somebody else. It's our own employees, our own project managers, our own superintendents, and with subs that we use every day. We build 3 to 5 communities a year. We've slowed down a bit from the days when we were building, 18 to 20 a year. But we're now focusing only on Central Florida. I like to say if I can't drive to it and see it at lunchtime, I probably don't want to do it. Concord Management is our property management company. They manage only our communities. They don't third-party manage for anybody else. Real quickly, we've spoken about Atlantic Housing Partners. The principals, the 3 of us have done with each other, not in separate organizations, about 40,000 apartment homes. And that same experience goes for Canton Construction because it's the same 3 principals developing communities over that 40-year period. And Concord Management has managed all those communities, and they currently today manage about 15,000. We still own about 15,000 apartment homes, all of those in Central Florida, about 90 communities still within Central Florida. The other person, and we had a slide in here on development experience, which I know you can't read, but that's just some recent experience in Central Florida to give you a little bit of an idea of our ability to perform in Central Florida. The other member of our team is Southern Affordable Services. Southern is, of course, not an affiliate of our company, not the same principals, but they provide the resident services that a lot of our communities need, whether it's education and financial management, or in home ownership or other resident programs. They provide those resident services. It's their mission and goal to work with the affordable housing units that we have, because most of our communities are mixed income communities. So we have a combination of affordable housing units and market rate units. Their experience, of course, they currently are a general partner owner in a little over 6,000 units. and continue to grow on a regular basis for Southern Affordable. Our development professionals are all local. Our architect, Slocum Platts, has been doing our business for just about everything that we've developed, definitely everything we've developed in Florida. We've got a lot of communities in other states that they haven't developed in, but they are very prolific throughout Central Florida and understand the business here in Central Florida. Our civil engineer, Madden, Moorhead, and Stokes, that's all they've ever done is develop Central Florida for the civil engineering portion. And of course, our environmental engineer, RES, used to be E-Sciences, for those of y'all that are familiar with some of the environmental teams. And of course, important to everything that we do is our transportation engineer. VHB is a well-accomplished transportation engineer that focuses on Central Florida. Their expertise is really important to traffic movements, infrastructure, roadway improvements, parking structures, turning movements, and we see them as an integral part of our team. I don't have listed here our land planner and landscape architect, Foster Conant, who's on our team, but they're also one of our team members that helps us with regard to development in every one of our communities. Examples of some of our successful projects that have a similar scope to your RFP. I think probably the most notable, we just completed and have fully occupied DeLand Commons. DeLand Commons is 169 apartment homes, all fully occupied today, with a storefront on the main street in downtown DeLand. If you were to drive downtown DeLand today, you'll see the storefront on the main street in downtown DeLand as part of that community. That community is 4-story. We developed the ground floor commercial space and leased that commercial space out. You had asked for some indications of some of the total costs for these comparable projects. This one cost us about approximately $40 million, just a little under $40 million. I think DeLand Commons represents well what you're looking for, your vision for the revitalization and transformation of downtown St. Cloud. From my perspective, having done this so long, transformation is so important. Transformation really starts at the family. It starts at that home and them having the ability to be positive consumers in your community, because once they are, they start to be consumers in the commercial, the dining, whatever you have on the ground floor. And then they transform the community, then they transform the neighborhood and out into your overall municipality. So I think that transformation is critically important. But you'll see that DeLand Commons, we tried to tie in the historic architecture. We worked with the Architectural Review Board downtown to make sure all of the architectural elements fit in with their vision of what they wanted to see in downtown DeLand. You'll also, in our comparable projects, we listed Uptown Maitland. In downtown Maitland, we have a senior living community. If you were to drive by and look at it, you might not know that there's a parking garage within that community. You'll see on the next slide, the entrance to the parking garage is off the side. The apartments themselves are on top of the parking structure, and the commercial on 1792 is in the front, so that even those commercial tenants are able to use the parking garage. So it really blends into the community well without either having a sea of parking, which I know the city of St. Cloud doesn't want and wants to alleviate, but also having where the commercial tenants who really want to be seen by the drive-by traffic. And that's what the Uptown Maitland Senior Living really represents. They mentioned Creative Village. We are the affordable mixed income, mixed use developer in Creative Village. We developed Lexington Court, Concord Court, Amelia Court, and have just broken ground on the Beacon in Creative Village. Amelia Court was 268 units with ground floor, what we refer to as live work units. We have individuals that may have a studio, they may have an accounting office, they may have some type of other art studio or retail front, and with their actual residential unit in the back of that. So that was a creative approach. And of course, as they mentioned, Craig Usler, he did a great job of developing the overall plan and bringing other developers like ourselves in to implement that plan overall. Amelia Court, just that one component at Creative Village, was just a little under $64 million. Also wanted to point out Harbor's Edge and Urban Landings. We have two different names, two different communities actually built as one project in downtown St. Pete. Part of that was actually a seniors community, And part of it was a family community built at the same time with a ownership separation and somewhat of a separation in the resident services. But again, all the ground floor is commercial. That community at the time, so it's been a few years, but a little over 7 years, that was about 22 million back in the time when we could have built that for that price range. Obviously, we couldn't do that in this day and time, but fortunately, we were able to at that point, and that's successful still to this day. And we do point out that we're not a build, fill, sell developer. We own everything for a minimum of 15 years. That's our business model. There's nothing that we've ever developed that we haven't owned for 15 years at a minimum. And we continue that today. Like I said, Concord Management, all their employees work for us. That is our company. We don't have other people that we're not in direct daily contact with that help us with the management of our communities. General information about our proposal for St. Cloud and downtown St. Cloud. These representative renderings, you'll recognize those probably from the photos of downtown DeLand. We think you're really representative here. The downtown DeLand had a lot of brick facades. They had a lot of historic architecture. You've got a mixture of that. I know you want to redevelop that with a strong focus on what is historic about this, but while still bringing in what is new and what will attract the commercial vendors to the community, particularly dining and the things that would make it walkable, where 168 apartment homes and those residents have the ability to live and work within the community and be serviced by the community. Our proposal, as I mentioned, is for a 4-story live-work environment. We are designating this as affordable. And a lot of people don't really understand the definition of the term affordable. And in the Florida statutes, affordable is defined under 420.0043. And as you can tell, I do a lot of this. So some of this nomenclature with regard to affordability is kind of second hat to me, but it's not necessarily to most people. I show this slide, and it's very hard to read, to give you an idea. We do mixed income, and affordability is very mixed. It goes from a low of approximately 30% AMI. You'll see 20, 25%, 30%, all the way up to 140%. 140% actually only applies to areas of critical concern in the state, like the Keys. But most of what you see in affordable developments is 50% to 80%. Most of what you saw being focused on in live local legislation, I know all of y'all are fairly familiar with, was the missing middle, that 80% to 120%. Because when we had the most severe affordability crisis, we had a lot of programs that would service that 50 to 80% group, and where we could provide them the opportunity to have an affordable home. But there was nothing available for those people making 80% to 120%, and they were being priced out of the market. Whether it be a $3,000 a month apartment versus a $1,500 a month apartment, they were in the middle between the two, and there was nothing there. And that's where the live local legislation created some opportunities, although it's had to be improved upon for local governments. And we have been active in trying to help model that. But I just wanted to point out that mixed income is what we're proposing here. You'll have some unrestricted market rate. You'll have some very low affordable. The majority of it will be at that what we call moderate level, the 80% AMI rents and incomes. So they will be rent restricted and income restricted. Ground floor commercial, of course, you all have pointed out is very important to the city. We recognize it for a downtown redevelopment or transformation is critical. The 250 additional parking spaces, our parking garage built within the community includes 250 additional spaces strictly for the use of the city. The city gets to determine what they want to do with them. They get to determine how they generate revenue with them and how they want to even expend the capital, to create those. And we'll get into that in just a second as well. We're not dependent upon any third-party financing or any third-party financial approvals. We're not dependent on any other financial stack, any other equity stack. We do it all. Even if we use tax-exempt bonds issued through the Housing Finance Authority of Osceola County, we're the purchaser of the bonds. So we don't have any issue with who's going to buy the bonds, how do we sell the bonds. We purchase the bonds, we purchase the equity if we're using low-income housing tax credits. We have no dependence on any third party. We understand the market, we understand the construction cost. We're doing it all day, every day. timeline, we would think that it would take about a year, a little under a year, to get through a design and permitting approval process. We recognize the importance with a city like St. Cloud of working with your staff so that we can implement something that is conducive to what you see for what you want to happen in downtown St. Cloud. And then typically for us, it's about an 18-month construction schedule after we get permitted. I don't think we've developed anything that took over about 18 months. It's pretty much on par for most everything we develop. So that gets you into May of 2027. This is two conceptual site plans. They're both the same plan, just rendered a little bit differently, where you can see City Hall there and our residential component. And all of the residential component has ground floor commercial. We're trying to make this really livable and have an opportunity even around City Hall to make it walkable, where we have outdoor plazas, outdoor pedestrian type activity going on, even around the backside of City Hall. We'll work with your staff on what they want to see with regard to some reserve parking that may be on the ground other than the 250 parking spaces. You'll note that in our proposal, we've left out, and I think if I can see it correctly, it's 2C, parcel 2C. We can develop the 168 apartments, and I'll go back to the square footage, and the 17,000 square feet, approximately just under 18,000 square feet of commercial without parcel 2C. We think parcel 2C is a good opportunity for the city to have commercial office space, eventually some ground floor retail on that as well. But we're proposing not to take title or any type of lease for that, not to develop that, and let that be an opportunity for the city in the future. We know that oftentimes cities, we've looked at this in other areas where they get into a situation like this and they realize, well, our city's growing. What are we going to do with some of our other service buildings? And they wish that they hadn't given up the space to develop a quality office building even for the city's growth. So we think there's a great opportunity there for either a public use or private use, and the city would have the opportunity to guide that. Add one other slide here, just helps you kind of see in perspective how City Hall sits and how that parcel 2C to the south, which you currently use as some employee parking, could be eventually developed into something that would be very advantageous for the city. You asked us to describe how our proposal is consistent with your RFP. I think we've done some of that in the presentation so far, but we are looking at a mixed-use development with ground floor commercial, designing it conducive to what your staff and your architectural review committee determines would be best to fit within the city of St. Cloud, designing it pedestrian friendly. So we do have a walkable live work downtown. And as your RFP really stressed, the ability to have sufficient parking, not only for our apartments and our commercial, but the 250 additional spaces for the city to capitalize on with regard to the retail that may need it, that's not their own, or their own office spaces. Again, you talked about mixed use and having an intensive mixed use. We did design a 4-story apartment community, which I think is most appropriate for downtown St. Cloud. And you were very concerned with parking analysis and parking movements. And we do have a traffic engineer on our team. And of course, that parking garage will be integral to the on-site parking. We'll also be, I believe there's about 22 additional parking spaces outside the parking garage that's going to be created on additional on-street parking that'll be public parking. The financial benefit analysis, you had asked for a financial benefit analysis in our proposals. We submitted one through Meridian Appraisal Group. Our community, as I mentioned, is going to cost about $50 million in total cost. But just to give you the summary from Meridian in their financial impact analysis, the output is about $83 million in economic impact to the downtown area. Our organization, as I mentioned, we provided a letter from our accountant. We have no need for relying upon third-party financial partners for either equity or debt. In our request, as we ran the numbers, because we're very comfortable with the numbers because we're still developing every day today, mixed-use communities like this, $6,250,000 for the city's 250 spaces that they get to use and charge and get revenue from. Exemption from city impact fees, that of course is subject to Florida law and the statutes. There's a lot of opportunity in affordable housing for those waivers or reimbursements, a little bit different than some of the other types of housings. And we're requesting, as we did in City of Daytona, City of Orlando, City of DeLand, a property tax rebate for the first 15 years. What that allows for is as we're going through the first transformation, the revitalization of downtown, we're able to make that economically sustainable by the rebate of those taxes that come into the city of St. Cloud. We recognize there are taxes for the county that the CRA doesn't necessarily take in, but those taxes that come into the city of St. Cloud, we are requesting for the first 15 years. We recognize that revitalization and transformation should be transformative. It should be at some point where you say, okay, this has done its job. You know, we have a thriving, living, workable live-work community here, and now it can support itself. And therefore, that's the reason for the request for only 15 years. You don't need to go on in perpetuity. It should be able to support itself at some point. As I mentioned, we're excluding parcel 2C. We had mentioned in our proposal a zero payment land lease. We can do that or an ownership transfer, whatever works with the city. I know that when you're working with your CFO, your bonding capabilities with regard to infrastructure improvements, a lot of other items that you have different criteria and different abilities. So that is, whatever works best for the city. I do want to point out as well that we understand the stormwater requirements for a community like this. We've done a number of them with the exfiltration and the stormwater underneath the buildings, underneath the parking structure. We will provide the streetscape improvements contiguous to our property. We're not proposing any, down the road, down the street signalization improvements or intersection improvements off-site, not contiguous to the property we're developing. And then I go back to the few pictures of the community that currently we have completed in DeLand and leave it open to you for other questions.
City Manager.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware, we did not include 2D in the proposal for the scopes. We were not anticipating losing that parking lot. So I don't know how that would affect you, but we were not anticipating losing all of those parking spaces.
Yeah, we were, in looking at your RFP that was submitted, it had a number of different site maps, because there were site maps from your original RFP and then the rebid RFP. And so we weren't quite sure whether that particular parcel, but that particular parcel is integral to a successful revitalization and transformation downtown. With it just being a parking lot, I think you've kind of taken a step back in what you're trying to accomplish.
Member Gilbert.
Yep. Can you pull that up so we can look at C&D, because that one thing I would like to see, because they're giving back one but taking one is what I'm understanding, correct? I'd just like to visualize that. In the meantime, when they're pulling that up, I asked the question to the first folks. You're looking at a 15-year tax waiver reimbursement. And you're looking at 3 years completion, correct?
2.5 is what we had for completion, if I remember, because we were looking at May of 27 for completion, which gets us to just a little over 2 years. Oftentimes, we know when we start working with staff and review committees, it can be a little longer.
There's a term that's called Godspeed, and that sounds like it. That's awesome, and we'd like that, but that's
like I said, I've been doing this for 40 years. We probably are the fastest builders of four-story product.
I saw that, today's appetite is everything.
We having our own general contractor and our own crews, we're pretty attentive.
Yeah. And this may be a question for our city attorney. I've seen where Ray Kroc made most of his money on 99-year lease deals with McDonald's versus the actual McDonald's restaurant themselves. What is the benefit and what is what's the problem with a lease versus a gift or a sale for something like this? Because I guess what they're presenting is we give them the land or we put it on a 99-year zero lot lease, correct?
I think they've, excuse me, I think they've offered either option.
Right. And
whatever.
what you and your
Ms. Culp, I think, said whatever, in their view, whatever's most beneficial to the city, I think is the way he was
Correct.
looking at that. So we'd have to explore that with the finance department and of course with the, the city's bond folks to see if there's any difference in doing it either way. My experience with long-term leases, a 99-year lease essentially removes the marketability of the property anyway for an extended period of time. So it's almost like transferring it fee simple to the recipient.
Okay, I just didn't know the difference, and thank you for clarifying that. I may be still receiving Social Security benefits, but I don't think I'll be around by then.
I was going to say, I'm not going to be around by then, but there have been some provisions in 99-year leases that may be beneficial to the city, but I don't claim to be an expert. in
And
that.
I don't either. I just know that sometimes it's beneficial for bonds and things such as that. I don't know. I just asked that question. And I had just had one more question. Give me 1 second to do that. As we know, I love the facades. I love that. This is downtown St. Cloud, and one day it'll be historical downtown St. Cloud as we continue to grow. And you talked about facades and things such as that, looking like historical downtown. We have buildings, 1911s when we were incorporated. I know the oldest building here is like 1920 or something like that through 1950 in housing. That's going to be a tough thing to do, and I don't mind not doing that because we are revitalizing the city. But I like your idea of at least conceptually handing some of those stuff back. I yield back to you, Mayor, for any other questions for the pleasure of council.
Yes, sir. Vice Chair.
I just want to say, as you have said to everybody, thank you for your presentation. I think it was an excellent presentation. And just my thoughts to the board, I actually do like including Lot 2D based on the concept that you've presented. I believe you've put retail in that location with storefronts right there.
Retail on the ground floor, and again, residential on the 3 floors above.
Okay. And then also, you're talking about a 15-year tax abatement. Do you have the estimated? I mean, I know that's a tough one, but do we know what the cost of that would be to the city?
I did not run the numbers on this one. I probably should have, but I did not.
Okay. Other than that, I think it was a great presentation. There is some design things that I would kind of alter a little bit, but thank you.
Thank you.
Member Urban.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I really appreciate your presentation. I was just going to say the same thing. I like the idea of trading 2D and 2C. I think it keeps it, especially having that retail right there on New York Avenue. I think that'd be really neat for our city. So that's my only comment.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and piggyback that comment about including 2D. I don't know if the utilities lie underneath that or not. I think we can check that with our staff. But, I just envision a bridge going through Deputy Mayor Fletcher's office. He doesn't have a window.
As long as I get a window.
We can all walk through.
And in Creative Village, we built the master lift station that supports that and relocated a lot of the utilities that were under what used to be the arena for the Magic before they moved into their new arena. That's now, I guess, the Kia Center, and a lot of the utilities that were under the parking and structures that were there. So all of the multifamily developed at Creative Village had these same issues of the retention, exfiltration, stormwater, utilities, all of that we had to deal with there as well.
Member Paul.
Hi. Thank you for being here today as well. Is there an accent cost that you want from the city as well?
Yeah, I can go back to that, but in a cash donation at the completion, because we're not looking for construction funding, but at the completion when we perform and provide you what we've asked for, 6.25 million is the asking, and then we of course have those exemptions, reimbursements, however it needs to be structured. We did include a template development and funding agreement, similar to what we've done in the city of Orlando and the city of DeLand, that identifies how we can complete that and take reimbursement of things like impact fees that you're able to waive or exempt or discount through the Florida statutes.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments?
Thank you.
Yes, sir. We'd like to thank you as well, Scott. Thank you for your proposal. All right. And members, do we have any other comments for any of the presenters today?
I don't for the presenters, but I would like to ask Antoinette some questions if I'm so honored to.
Yes, sir. Antoinette.
while she comes up here, if I may, we did a little research on the mobility fee question. The ordinance allows us to do an economic exemption for qualified targeted industries up to 5% of the total revenues generated for any 1 year. So if we were to consider this year, that would be $400,000 would be the 5%. With the estimated increase in mobility fees, we could estimate that would probably be approximately $1 million next year.
All right, floor is yours.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good.
I read a lot of stuff, and as you see, we think we all got it, piles of stuff. But it was recognized that the staff recommended a certain company, and through my presentations, I just couldn't figure out why they did, and I would like to for an explanation of how you surmised that a certain company that was recommended, because for me, it wasn't the same. And again, we don't get to chat. So I'd like to do that in an open forum if we could, please. And then secondly, did you analyze the economical impact to the city for each of these projects besides what we're having to offer with land use and waiving of fees and things like that? Where would be the highest project cost to the city? What would be the lowest? These are three different bids, so it's so hard to put them into one jar and say they're all three pickles, because they're not. They're different sizes and scopes and structures, and they're great that way. But when you guys do this, and you do a wonderful job, Antoinette, how do you determine what your recommendation is, and why is that such a recommendation? And again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong or different. I just don't have that knowledge. After reading all this stuff, I went a total different direction than recommendation from staff. So I'll ask you those questions, and then after that, if there's any additional, I'll follow up with that. But that's my question for now, if I may.
Absolutely. So Antoinette Forbes, Economic Development Director. So I can answer your question in terms of what my comments were. And then, we can talk about the committee as a collective. So on my comments, first, I want to echo what the board members have said, that we were really impressed with the proposals that we received. But they were quite voluminous. So yes, we did have to go through them in great detail. So I can start just kind of one by one.
Thank you.
So particularly G3, what we noticed is that, yes, they did offer more than the required amount of spaces, which we thought was great. However, we also noted that they offered high-end apartments with the rooftop lounge and the fitness center, and we thought that that was a good alternative in terms of housing to be able to support our downtown businesses that we had not seen before. I did make a note during the evaluation that I was concerned of whether or not that particular inventory would be supported based on our consumer spending tapestry. However, I had to go by the proposal that was submitted, and assuming they did their due diligence, that yes, we could support that type of luxury, quote unquote, style housing. I did have some comments here that they did not provide specifics in terms of the incentive breakdown. So I was concerned about that. However, they did note that there was, would accept penalties for non-performance, which I would consider to be a requirement. They did also note that they would be interested in potential revenue sharing for the parking, which I thought was substantial. What else here? I also noted that they were working on the Ocoee Downtown Master Plan, which I thought may offer some similarities. I did have a question in reference to the land purchase or possible long-term lease option, how that would affect us, the economic impact if that they did not purchase it, and so therefore it would not be on our tax roll. So I did have questions about that. Bear with me here.
Give me 1 second. Internet, we have city manager wants to make a
I'm
comment
so
real quick.
I just wanted to point out the public procurement process that we went through. There was a panel of employees, and each of the employees that were on the selection committee had to score each of the proposals based on the criteria that was in the scope the RFP that went out, which the board saw at the CRA meetings. So while Internet is pointing out the items that she saw, I just wanted to point out, so the different categories, which unfortunately some of, this was in the packet that we sent to the board, but I think this answers your question that you were looking for on how staff came up with this. And I'm going to look at my procurement director. So if I say something wrong, she can jump up here. But there was a 20 points for general information, 20 points for qualifications, and I don't know what the second word is because it's cut off. Experience, thank you. 20 points possible for financial benefit, 20 points possible for consistency of the project and the RFP goals, and 20 points for organizational and financial resources. So Atlantic Housing, when they pull the scoring of the different employees that were on that committee, they got a score of 79. Capstack had a score of 81.4. G3 Development had a score of 91.4. So staff has, based on the public procurement process, we have no choice but to follow the point system. That's where you as a board have a little different opportunity, that you get to hear the proposals from your different perspective, and you get to pick based on, the board's opinions, your background, business sense, and all of that. But I did want to jump in and help answer that a little bit.
Well, thank you for that information. Information is knowledge, and we appreciate that. The question that I'm asking is the director of CRA, this is a CRA project, so her expertise is what I'm asking for now. I don't get a chance to do that on a general day-to-day for the Florida statutes and laws, so that's why I'm asking her now, because I've been at meetings with her, I've been at CRAs, I've been at FRAs, and today I'd like to ask those questions from her expertise. But thanks for that information. Those are very close scoring, and then there's a big scoring difference. You're looking at less than a point difference, and then you're looking at 10 points. I just didn't see it, so that's why I wanted to ask the expertise of our CRA director. But thank you very much for that information. And can you continue, please?
Absolutely. So to wrap up in reference to G3, I thought that the projects that they provided as examples were very close to a template of what we'd like to see here. And also in reference to the amount incentives, cash incentives that they requested, it was in line with what was in the RFP. In reference to Capstack, again, they do have more parking spaces than what was required. They are looking at doing it in 2 phases. I also noted that they were looking for a donation of the land to the developer. And I was curious about the phased approach they had to the construction, how they were going to start in one phase and then kind of have parking shift over to another phase while they do the completion. I did like the fact that they had green building practices. I also like the fact that they, which all of the proposers did, they combined some form of residential, which I thought was crucial for our downtown. I did note that the capital expenditures were approximately $77 million, which I thought was substantial. I could not delineate from their proposal whether or not the commercial piece of it, or was it simply multifamily. I couldn't tell that from the proposal. I was concerned that the amount that they were requesting in incentives has exceeded the amount that was in our RFP. And so then we'd have to now figure out how we're going to provide that additional amount. I also noticed that some of their team members had previous experience on the Stephen Plantation project. I also like that the experience that they listed was very similar to what we may be looking for, such as the FDOT Kissimmee Garage, the Largo City Hall mixed use garage, and the Neo City office building. I also like that they had an assortment of MBEs.
If you could explain MBEs, just
I'm sorry.
to the local, I understand acronyms, but to the local panel, if we could, please.
Absolutely. They had an assortment of minority business enterprises.
Thank you. I knew that, but I just want to make sure for the acronym purposes. Thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
And then lastly, for Atlantic Housing Partners, I like that the project principal had extensive affordable housing background, and that they also had a GC license. There was something here. Oh, I also like that they had a background in historic preservation. I don't know if the others had that, but they did note that in the proposal, so I thought that was critical. I did notice, though, that the architect firm listed, at least according to the proposal, did not list any commercial development experience since 2018. I was curious about the fee waivers that was being requested, which has already been answered previously. There was a note about the affordable housing for 15 years. And then my question was, well, then what happens after the 15 years? How does that work?
Good question.
There was something here about the city having to maintain those 250 spaces. So now I was curious about what the maintenance would go and how would the city be able to afford maintaining these spaces? What does that look like? And we have already talked about the lot that was not originally included.
I believe council thought that was a good flip-flop from C to D, but I just, from hearing, I don't know specifically, but.
Yes, I
Please
did not
go
give a
ahead.
preference. I was simply noting that they included something
Yeah.
that was not part of that.
And thank you for that information. Okay.
And that's the summation. Those are my notes from
Okay,
it.
you gave me G3 and cap stack and then.
Yes, and that last piece was the Atlantic housing.
Oh, the Atlantic housing. Okay,
Mhm.
that's why I put it there. I appreciate your expertise in this. One, it's nice to have creative people come in. We had 3 very creative
Mhm.
bids and 3 different projects, and then what the city's looking for. I get it, but more parking is better than less right now because we saw a growth of 38,000 to 56,000. Who knows when the next growth spurt's going to be? And as we talked about during CRAs and we talked about Metro Plan, widening a street is much more costly than building a street widened at the get-go. So the more now, it would be cheaper than having to add another parking garage in the future as costs go up. But I appreciate some of those far out looks of parking spaces exceeding what our request for today, because we're looking at needs, not wants, as we do a lot of times. But the want is, yeah, we'll have more because it'll be beneficial for us in 10 or 15 or 20 years online. But I thank you for the recap because I know this is what you do and I've been in meetings with you. So this gives me information. So I yield back to you, Mayor, and thank you very much for the presentation.
Absolutely. Happy to assist.
Thank you. Member Urban.
Thank you. I do appreciate the input and the reasoning behind why staff ranked it that way. What is, and by the way, all 3 of these are fantastic projects. I think our city would be really blessed to have any one of these with really fantastic presentations from everybody involved. But what was appealing to me and why I think I would agree with staff's recommendation is the asks from the CRA or the city were not as intense as some of the other ones. And I think, when we're talking about giving a tax waiver for 10 or 15 years, isn't part of the CRA's goal is to increase the tax base of its district and of its area. And I think if we're not doing that or giving waivers for a certain amount of years, that we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot a little bit. I do understand the reason for asking that, and I understand why that could benefit both parties, but that was for me just the asks weren't as intense. Also, I like the 3 stories all around on those. I think that's a good way to get your feet wet a little bit on putting these properties into our downtown instead of building a high rise or something that is even taller than City Hall. I think the 3 stories would fit the neighborhood right. So that's just my opinion, but I will yield back to you, Mayor.
All right. Do we have any other comments regarding the proposals today?
Mayor, may I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
Figures don't lie and liars don't figure. We've got a lot of figures given to us today and a lot of costs to the city and a lot of costs to the developer and a lot of costs. How do we get to the bottom line? And we can't do it per square footage because there's 3 separate designs, but we can really minus of what it costs to the citizens and the taxpayers and us to these three projects. I don't know how we can put that down in a recap, but I would like to see something like that of what our cost is, as Member Urban had stated before. Yeah, this is a good idea and there's less cost. And you're right, CRA is about making taxable, not taking taxes away. And I have a 10 and a 15-year tax abatement here, and then I have a 0 tax abatement, but then I have a higher cost above. It's just getting the figures right. And again, this is a great project. These are three, I don't think we would go wrong by any one of these three. I just really don't. They're great companies with great benefits, and they all have great relationships, and they have a history of doing great jobs in different cities. So I just didn't know how we could get closer to numbers so we can crunch them as a council to see, yeah, we want 500 or we want 600 parking, or we can have 400. Cost per parking space, what were we saying, $22,000 to $25,000? It goes down as parking spaces go up. We understand that, but I don't know, Mayor. And it might be an answer to that question. How do we get where apples are apples? Because right now we got apple and an orange and banana, but I'd eat them all, so I got to figure out how to do it.
We do have some other council comments, but the city attorney's got his light. I want to go ahead and let him
Yeah,
speak.
thank you. Appreciate Mr. Gilbert's comments always. So I'm just quickly overview of the process we're in, Mr. Gilbert, and I'm sure the others are thinking about it too. I think one, maybe two of the presentations talked about what the next steps are. So from a staff perspective, what we're looking for today, if you can reach there, is to tell us which one of these groups you want us to work with. When we go through that process, the process that's provided for these P3s is we're going to bring back an agreement. We may bring back an initial agreement that deals with sort of a due diligence period where you go through all that and we look at what really can be done, where you start crunching the numbers and you get a little closer, and then ultimately you get to a final agreement. Now remember, this is not only going to be a project between the CRA and whoever the group is, but the city is going to also have to be part of this agreement also. So we're going to have to work through all those. But the process is to get started if we can, and then work with one of the particular groups, bring back more of the particulars, document it better so you understand it, do the things that you've been mentioning, Mr. Gilbert, so that you could ultimately enter into a final agreement.
Vice Chair Fletcher.
I just want to echo the same comments. I believe we could pick any of the folks here. As always, thank you to staff. I know this was a lot of work. This is a big undertaking for the city, the CRA, and the city council. And if it was up to me, I'd hope we could put a shovel in the ground tomorrow. I believe this is a lot of information right now. There's a lot of stuff coming at us. We have some unknowns that I think we kind of need to get answers to. I know Dan was talking about we need to kind of focus on one and then kind of work through all that. I don't think we're necessarily there yet. I like to move things along fairly quickly, don't like to hold them up, but on something like this, being such a huge investment in our downtown, I think we may need one more meeting so that we can sit down, kind of request some information, get that information, and then maybe come back and then kind of go in the right direction, and then start to work with the one that we choose to kind of nail down some of the particulars. That's my recommendation, only because, like the tax abatement, like I don't know what that number is. I don't know some of this stuff. I'd kind of like to see it a little more detailed on what the city's going to be offering and then what we're going to get back. But this was a good highlight of each of those. Those are my comments.
Member Paul, I'm going to let the city manager have a comment on this first.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to remind the city council that originally you had asked for us to include RMA, the CRA consultant. I know we have one person from RMA here, as well as another one, I think, on the phone. Additionally, I had forwarded the council an email this morning. Part of what their recommendation, I think, actually answers some of the things that I heard both Councilman Gilbert and Councilman Fletcher state, and I'm just going to read it real quick. It was, please ensure you have provided a development budget, pro forma, and cash flow analysis that includes the following: all development costs and assumptions, land and hard soft cost assumptions, financing assumptions to validate cash flow projections, total project costs, incorporating land and TIF assumption, there's that tax, income expense projections, assumptions, NOI, debt assumptions. So that is something that, if the board wanted to table a final decision, we could work with these people and get some of that additional information. And also, in case you have other questions for our consultant who has worked on these projects previously, just letting you know that they were here. Thank you.
All right, Member Paul.
Yes, today was a lot of great information, but in regards to what Councilmember Gilbert said, I would like to see a comparison of all three of basically what they're gonna, provide versus what we give. That way I can look at it all together. But it was a lot of information, so those are my recommendations.
Okay, so do we give a consensus on how to move forward? If we want to move forward to another meeting and get more information, is that how we do it, or is it by vote?
Should we ask Dan that question? One thing, it looks like people would need a little more time to digest the fish we just ate, but
You're hungry, aren't you?
have you seen me? I have missed a meal and snacks in between. But I would not like to slow it down to the fact that these folks have done such a good job under the timetables that they have, and all three presenters need some information and answers on a quick basis, not saying, okay, we'll hold it back for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. I think we need to get the information we're asking for. We need to digest it as quick as we can, thoroughly, and then give these folks answers, because time is money. And these folks, if you look at these presentations, spend a lot of time and a lot of money in making these presentations. And we have to respect that with them, and we have to give them an answer so they can either get ready to go to work or get ready to work on another project with other cities and municipalities and also private sectors, which all of them have that experience. So that's the only thing I ask. If we do this, I was going to say doo-doo, but if we do this, let's do it in a timely fashion if we could, to get the information and make a decision. That's the only thing I'd say, Mayor and Dan.
Well, may I suggest, obviously it's a big decision. You've got a lot of information. You were given a lot of information recently, so you probably really haven't had the opportunity to digest it. It might appear to be a little different to you too than it was on paper, and now hearing presentations too. So that's all part of it. As a suggestion, you could set another meeting of this board to happen fairly quickly, week, 2 weeks, whatever it is. We could also ask if you could, as each individual members, could provide to Antoinette some questions you have, maybe by the end of the day tomorrow or something, and then in a generic enough form so that we could get them to each one of the presenters, and they maybe be able to address some of the questions that you might now have because you've had a better chance to understand their proposals and their projects. That would be a suggestion. And the only other thing I'd add to that is that we'd ask each one of you individually, and for the presenters not to have any individual contact with any of these board members during this process.
You're saying don't speak with any of the presenters?
Yeah, that's right.
Mayor?
That's good. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to piggyback what Councilmember Gilbert said, and I don't know if I can look to the folks. All the questions that we're asking up here, what, a week, 2 weeks? Could you guys turn that information around that quickly? Because I think the council kind of would set a meeting based in a week or 2 weeks, based on the fact that you could get that back to us.
I'm seeing some heads nod.
Yeah.
3 of the presenters said that.
Okay.
I just don't want to drag them out.
I 100% agree.
I would use any one of these 3. Great presentations, great companies. This is a big decision for our city, I believe. I think it's one of the largest decisions we're going to make with our CRA. And we're instructed through our commissioners meeting with Osceola County, projects like this is what we're looking for in CRA. So I'm excited about it, but sometimes things get too fast, I kind of slow down. And that was a lot of information to digest last night and other days.
So a week or 2
I do whatever is we can get the information. They nodded that they could do it, Sean, within a week. We can get back and get it done.
Next week. I'm okay with next week.
Next week, we've got a city council meeting, but I do have something prior to that in the bridge. But we would need more than a week to advertise, right, for another meeting?
No, we would just, if you give us a date today, we'll notice it tomorrow.
Okay.
But it's a council meeting weeks are always a busy week for staff and the city manager especially. So if you could do it, my suggestion, the week of the 12th would probably be a better week.
I mean,
I believe we have a council member out of town.
Do you have some?
Tuesday, 15th.
it's up to y'all.
I'm good Tuesday the 13th. That's 2 weeks from today.
I believe Councilman Gilbert might be out of town.
I can fly in for it. This is a big decision, so if I have to fly in and fly back, I can do it. I have no problem with that. That week is.
What?
The 13th, I'm out of town the 9th through the 16th for a project, but this is a decision. Either I can get online and do it via Zoom, or I can fly back and forth. I don't care.
Can he do virtual?
Sure, as long as we have a quorum without him, he can do it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I didn't mean to do that.
Oh, no, it's got to be right. This here, and these folks don't need to wait too much longer. They worked hard, and I'm willing to, if I can Zoom, I'll Zoom. If not, I'll fly. But if you want to put it on the 13th, I'll calendar it.
So
It'll be early afternoon before we get.
sometimes it's easier to look at my phone versus my computer. I'm sorry.
Well, we're in a meeting till 12 at least that day.
We could do it on the Monday before.
The 13th, the afternoon, I don't see any issues. On my calendar right here, I don't show any council members being out, but I don't have the paperwork that I had when we had the workshop last week. I don't have that with me.
We would like to try 1 o'clock. You think maybe, or 2 o'clock? What would be? You want to do 2 o'clock, make sure we're back in time?
I always like to say 1:30 because anybody goes to a restaurant and sometimes getting back by 1 is difficult. 1:30 would probably be best. So many people are needing to eat before they come.
Okay.
I'm going to Zoom if it's
1:30 on the 13th. Is that good for everybody? Tuesday?
Okay, so how long does the board want to have to review the information they're going to give you so that we can give them a clear deadline so that I don't give it to you the night before?
The 13th is a Tuesday, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Would Friday or Monday be appropriate? That we can, I think it's only going to take us a day to review this small piece of information. So if our deadlines were 8 a.m. Monday morning, that'd give us all day Monday, and then till 1:30 on Tuesday. Is that okay, Mayor? I don't know how much time to digest.
The mayor,
Does that?
Mayor, you're going to be with me at Sunbridge that morning. Just
Yes.
letting
That's what I
you
was
know.
saying.
Yeah.
We'll be back by 1:30.
We'll be back by 1:30.
I guess the question is, I guess we need to give the questions to staff in a timely manner. So it's on us as well.
That has to happen within the next 24 hours.
We can give it individually to staff and then they can provide it, all the answers to every one of us.
Okay, so the council is going to give me your questions by the end of the day tomorrow?
I'm out of town tomorrow, but I'll have I can work on it tonight.
Okay, and then we're going to ask for that information back from the proposals by Monday, the 12th, like 8 a.m., so that you have the full Monday to review it?
Let them get in their office, I think.
Or
everybody's remote now, but
Can we have Friday end of business?
yeah, can you turn information around in a week, or do you guys need 2 weeks? Because if it was by Friday the
perfect.
9th.
we got 3 head shaking.
Yeah. So why don't we have them provide the information to us by Friday the 9th at noon? That gives us the opportunity to give it to the board before the end of the day. Okay, so the 9th, info, proposals, 13th.
And we thank you, presenters. This is a big decision for council, and we really want to make the right decision. I think all three of you are qualified and have the expertise. So it's not on you, it's on us to get together. Antoinette, is there certain guidelines we can talk about? Cost out, cost in? It's going to be so hard because there's 3 separate projects. We're not getting 3 widgets. It's different.
So as part of our transmittal to the board, not only will we provide their responses, but we'll try to make it as close as to an apples to apples comparison. So as you review it, you can have what I think will be the most, to provide some continuity in the responses.
So if we are doing that from the proposals information, we cannot do that in 4 hours. That's not going to happen.
Who said
That's
4
not
hours?
gonna, well, if we're getting the information back by the 9th to get it to the council before we leave the end of the day, so you have the weekend and the Monday to review.
We get it tomorrow. She has a week to get it to them, and then.
So you're going to have her just pull the questions together? I thought you were having her
Well,
pull the
questions and
answers.
and I think she's understanding what I'm saying, apples to apples, as close as you can get. Parking spots, how much per parking spot costs, retail, what per square footage is, impact of what it's gonna cost the city in tax dollars, abatements, tax deferral, and also land use versus lease versus sale or giveaway. Just, it could be 5 or 6 things. Are we thinking the same way, or?
We will do our best
That's all we
based
can
on
ask.
the responses that we receive back.
You might want to review the meeting and go through each one of these.
Right, correct. So there's certain things, like if we're talking about economic impact, that can be a lot, but if they provide us, for example, their capital expenditures, we can definitely give you that. They provide us the number of parking spaces, we can definitely give you that. The number of proposed jobs, yes, we can include that. However, if you're now asking what will be those jobs and the area median wage and what that will equal, no, we won't have that.
I don't think we need to get that dirty. Just get a brief overview, but it would be effective if we have 500 parking spots and we charge after 5 o'clock at $10 a spot. That's going to bring in potential revenue of $2,000 a day on the weekend. I'm just throwing out fictitious numbers. Or if we have 200 spots, what will it bring after 5 o'clock on Saturdays? What's allotted to us? Some of them allot us 250 spaces, and them for 250 spaces. So just brief. Don't get too deep in it. Don't dig too deep, but I think we got a very intelligent panel here with 7 of us, and I think we can divulge just a little bit of what makes sense.
Vice Chair.
The last comment that I had is the consultant is here. I just want to hear her comments.
Yes, that'd be awesome.
Thank you, Internet.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Adrienne Esteban, Senior Project Manager with RMA. We did send our questions, as the city manager had mentioned. Some of them had to do a lot with the additional financial analysis needed. Some of the information was not included, or the financial information was not included that we were looking for to give you those apples to apples you're looking for. I did want to also note that we received the proposal responses a little over a week ago. So this is our preliminary review, but we do recognize the need for more financial information, I would say is the bottom line for this. And we do think that you will need to address the land swap, probably with your city attorney, just to make sure, everything, again, is apples to apples. And then lastly, I know you all are looking for a quick turnaround. I'm sure everyone can respond, within, their time period of a week, or if they indicated that. But we would need at least more than a day to review those financial metrics that we're looking at. So it would request maybe a little bit more time than just a day. Maybe a week for us as well would be nice.
Yeah, and city manager, city attorney, I think that we could ask that question of each to answer whether or not this parcel in the front parking, where are we at? Over here? Yep. Parking lot there? Yeah, as opposed to the hotel site, maybe
Right.
let them answer whether or not that's viable for
Sure.
one
I
or
mean,
the
that's
other.
obviously something that this board has said they were interested in, so I think they heard that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Leslie, did you have anything to add to today's discussion? No? Thank you. All right, any other comments from council, commission, board? Public comment. Anyone in the audience like to speak on this item? All right, and with that said, we have our next CRA meeting Thursday, June 5th, 2025, and this meeting is adjourned.
I realized too late. I was going to tell them how many parking